Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. Now today's video is a very special one as I have compiled stories about haunted Hmong houses, edited to where it'll be like a new experience listening to this 2-hour video. Plus, this will help some of you catch up on stories that you haven't heard before. Before we get started, consider becoming a YouTube member where you get extra content and member-only features. Click that join button to become a member. Thank you everyone for watching. Remember to leave a like and subscribe so I can support my adult beverage addiction. And without further ado, enjoy the show. This happened in Oklahoma, on a family farm that used to belong to my uncle. My uncle was my dad's older cousin, but we just called him Uncle. He owned a farm outside a small town in Oklahoma. It was quiet there. The nearest neighbor was far enough that at night, if you heard something outside, you knew it was either an animal, the wind, or something that should have not been there. The property had a main house, a long gravel driveway, a few sheds, fenced areas, and some locked greenhouse-looking buildings in the back. I will not say exactly what he grew there, but it was the kind of crop where adults lowered their voices when they talked about it. My uncle was not close to many people near the end of his life. He had divorced his wife years before and was distant from his children. He also had a woman overseas in Laos. Some relatives called her his girlfriend and some called her his wife, but many of them called her his mistress. I never knew it was true, but I only knew that he talked to younger women from Laos a lot, and he wanted to bring over his mistress to America, but the paperwork never worked out. Immigration rules are a lot stricter now than they were back then, and there were things in his situation that made it hard. After that, he became kind of bitter, and he stopped coming around unless there was something else he needed. Then, one day, he passed away by himself in that old farmhouse. A neighbor noticed his truck had not moved for days and called my dad. My dad and another uncle went to check on him, and they found him in the living room, sitting in his recliner like he had fallen asleep watching TV. We had a funeral for him. It was not a huge funeral, but enough family came. His children came too, but they did not stay long. I remember one auntie whispering that his spirit might not leave easily because his heart was still tied to his mistress in Laos. At the time, I didn't think much of it. A few months later, my parents decided that we would move into the farmhouse and take over the property. Rent was getting expensive, and my dad said it made no sense to let family land sit empty. He said that we could clean the place, manage the crop, and save money. When we moved in, the house still felt like it belonged to my uncle. His old boots were by the back door, his shot glasses were still in the cabinet, and his recliner was still in the living room because my dad said it was too heavy to move right away. The first thing that we noticed was this black cat. It showed up about a week after we moved in. I saw it sitting near the back shed, all black, skinny, with yellow eyes. At first, I thought it was just a stray. Farms have cats sometimes, but this cat was different. It never came close, it never begged, it only watched the house. My mom left food out for it once, and the cat waited until everybody went inside before eating. Then it disappeared. My dad said to not bother it. He said that cats keep mice away, but my mom did not like it. But why? If your mom didn't like it, why did she leave food out for it? What the heck? After that, the other weird thing happened with the recliner. My dad finally dragged it into the garage because my mom hated looking at it. She said that whenever she passed it at night, she felt like someone had just gotten up from it. For 2 days, the living room felt better. Then, one morning, my little sister walked into the kitchen and asked, "Why did my dad move the chair back?" We looked into the living room. The recliner was there again. It was turned to where the TV with the footrest halfway up. My dad got mad because he thought one of us was messing around. We told him that we didn't touch it, that the chair was heavy. Nobody could have dragged it across the house quietly in the middle of the night. My dad said that maybe he remembered wrong. Maybe he didn't push it all the way out into the garage. Sometimes, at night, we would hear kitchen cabinets open and close. Not loud, but just soft sounds, like someone looking for a cup. My mom would turn on the light and check, but nothing was open. My dad would also notice things around the farm. Tools that he left in the shed would show up in the back steps, a hose that would be unrolled after he wrapped it, and one lock on a back building that would be hanging open, but nothing inside looked disturbed. He bought a cheap trail camera and pointed it toward the sheds. Oh god, don't tell me you don't also have footage of this. Almost every night, it caught the black cat. The cat would walk across the gravel, stop near the back building, and stare toward the house. It never moved like it was hunting. It moved like it was checking on something. Around that time, I started hearing someone walking in the hallway at night. Our bedrooms were on one side of the house, and the living room was on the other. There was one floorboard near the bathroom that always creaked. One night I heard that creak. Then I heard slow footsteps going toward the living room. I thought it was my dad, but then the TV clicked on. It was on low volume, muffled voices. I opened my door and said, "Dad?" The TV shut off. Everything went quiet. Then I heard the recliner creak like someone shifting their weight. I turned on the hallway light. The living room was empty, but the recliner was back in its old spot, facing the TV. We moved it into the garage again the weekend before. This was the first time I felt real fear in that house. My dad checked every door and window, and everything was locked. Nothing was missing. Outside, the black cat was sitting by the driveway. When my dad shined the flashlight at it, it did not run. It just stared back at him. A few days later, my mom was cooking when she suddenly froze. She looked toward the hallway and asked if we heard something. At first, I didn't hear anything. Then I heard a man's voice from somewhere in the house. It was soft, almost like someone speaking from another room, but I could not understand all of it. My mom turned off the stove and called my dad in from the shed. When he came inside, he went straight to my uncle's old bedroom. That room had become storage because nobody wanted to sleep in it. By now, my dad was pissed. He was yelling at my uncle's spirit to move on and that he was already dead and for him to not be doing things like this to us. That night, we heard crying outside. It wasn't loud. It came from somewhere near the back field, between the house and the locked buildings. It sounded like someone trying to not cry too hard. My dad said that maybe it was an animal, like a fox or something. The black cat sat on the porch railing that night. It wasn't looking at us. It was looking toward the field. The last thing that happened was what finally made my dad call for help. For about a week, he kept dreaming of my uncle standing by the fence, asking him to open the gate. My dad would say, "The gate is already open, just come through." But my uncle would just point back at the house, angry. Then, one night, my dad woke up gasping. He said he felt someone sitting on the side of the bed. My mom turned on the lamp, and they both saw an imprint in the blanket, like someone had just been sitting there. At this point, the recliner kept on returning back to the living room, so we just decided to leave it there. All of the paranormal activities that happened in that house, we just got used to it. We just said that it was our uncle who passed away. It was a little weird and scary at first, to be honest, but actually he didn't really do anything to us. But still, there were times when it made us feel a little uneasy that the spirit of our uncle was still roaming around on that property. Eventually, my dad called an elder. A few days later, we went to see a shaman in the city. My dad said his older cousin had died in the house and strange things had happened. The shaman listened and he asked if there was any animals that appeared around the property after the funeral. My dad looked at my mom and he said that there was a black cat. The shaman said that my uncle's spirit had not moved on. He said that my uncle was still tied to the land, the house, and his mistress overseas. He said that the anger and sadness carried with him when he died. He said that the cat was not exactly my uncle, but that it was somehow connected. The ceremony was done the following weekend. A lot of relatives came over to our house. We killed a pig and a few chickens, and the shaman performed his ceremony. After the ceremony was completed, the shaman said that he was able to send the spirit of our uncle into the afterlife, and that there was nothing else for us to worry about. And you might not believe it, but after that, all the paranormal activity stopped happening in our house. We were able to throw away that stupid recliner, and it never came back, mainly because my dad and I put it in our truck and we threw it away at the junkyard. But sometimes I get scared that I might find the recliner in the living room sitting there watching TV. Me and my family still live at this house even to this day. A few of my siblings moved out, but I still live here with my parents to help them tend the farm. My story is about a house that my family rented in St. Paul for a short time. I don't remember the exact year, but it was sometimes after security cameras became common in people's houses. We had a small security system set up inside because my parents worked a lot, and my younger siblings would sometimes come home from school before anyone else did. It wasn't anything fancy, just a few motion cameras that we ordered online that we set up around the house. The house itself looked normal. It had a front porch, a living room, a kitchen, 3 bedrooms, and a basement. The landlords told us that the previous tenants had moved out suddenly, but he made it sound like a family issue. We didn't ask too many questions. When the place is affordable, sometimes you just hope that everything else works out. Now, the house was pretty normal for the most part. There were a few things that happened that I want to share. One time, my mom had a dream. At first, she didn't tell us. She just seemed tired. One time, I asked if she was okay, and she said that she had a weird dream. I asked what that was about, and she said that she dreamed of an older woman standing by the basement door. In the dream, the older woman told her, "This isn't your house." My mom was trying to apologize to the lady, telling her that they are already living in this house and that they rent it. But the older lady kept telling her that this wasn't their home, and that this was already their home, and that they need to move out. After that, my mom said that she woke up right after that. I told her that it was probably because we had just moved in, and that she was just maybe stressed. She agreed and told me that it was just probably nothing. A few nights later, she had another dream. This time, she said that the same woman was standing in the kitchen, but there was also an older man sitting at the table. They were both looking at her. The woman told her again that we needed to leave. My mom told them that this was already our house, and that we're already renting it, we're paying the bills, and that this was our house and it belonged to us. Then the older woman told her that they had been staying there for a long time and that the home belonged to them and that we were the ones that were supposed to move out. My mom woke up and she said that she heard water running. She thought that someone had left the sink on, so she got up and checked the kitchen, turning on all the lights. She didn't see anything. She checked the bathrooms and nothing. Even after this, she could still hear water running around somewhere in the walls. The next day, she told my dad, and my dad checked everything. He looked under the sinks, he checked the basement, and there was nothing wrong. There were no leaks, nothing that was wet, and no problems. Once in a while, we would hear that sound of running water. It didn't happen all the time, but it would happen once in a while and just enough that we remembered it. It sounded like it would be a faucet that was turned on somewhere far away, but it wasn't dripping at all. It was just like running water, like you turned on the handle and the water was running. However, even when the water was running, we could never find the source of that sound. We would check everything, and eventually we just learned to live with it. I remember one time when I heard the sound of the running water. I was in my room trying to sleep. It was on a school night. It sounded like someone was taking a shower in the bathroom. Keep in mind, this was in the middle of the night and nobody should be up that late. I got annoyed because I thought one of my siblings was up late. I opened my door and looked down the hallway. The bathroom light was off and the door was open. Nobody was inside. The sound of water was still going, so I walked into the kitchen, turned on all the lights, and nothing. Then I walked near the basement door, and the sound got louder. It sounded like it was coming from the basement. I did not go down there. I turned around and went back to my room. That was probably the smartest thing I could do because honestly, I had no reason to go into a dark basement at night. The next day, I told my dad about what I had heard, and he and I went down into the basement to check it out, but there was nothing down there. No wet spots, no running water, nothing. Remember how I mentioned earlier that we had set up security cameras in our house? Well, one day, the cameras started to go off. The first time that it happened, all of us were out. My parents were at work, and we were at school. My phone buzzed with a motion alert from the living room camera. I opened it, maybe expecting to see a shadow from the sunlight or a car passing by. But the video showed the empty living room. Nothing moved. I thought that maybe the camera detected light changing from a car passing outside, so I just closed it. Then, another alert came in from the kitchen camera. Again, I didn't see anything. And that was basically it for that time when I experienced that. But eventually, this started to kind of happen more frequently. Our family were getting alerts from the security camera. It was coming from the kitchen. Sometimes we would get motion detected in the hallway, and there was just a bunch of weird things. One time, there was a clip of a motion detected by the hallway, and the weird thing was that the hallway was empty, but near the end of the clip, the basement door moved just slightly. It didn't open all the way, it just shifted, like someone had touched it from the other side. During my lunch break, I sent the video to my dad and told him about what I saw. When we got home, the basement door was closed, and after my dad came home from work, we checked the basement and didn't find anything. He said that maybe the doorknob was loose or maybe the latch was just loose and that he'll fix it one of these days. One day, my mom and my siblings went grocery shopping. My dad was at a relative's house. Nobody was home. While we were at the store, my mom's phone started buzzing nonstop. There was motion in the hallway, in the living room, and in the kitchen, and then back to the hallway again. My mom got annoyed and said that maybe these cameras were broken. She opened the live view while we were standing in the aisle. The living room was empty, but we could hear water running through the camera audio. My mom stopped moving. I heard it too. It sounded like the kitchen sink was on full blast, but in the video, the sink was right below the camera, so we couldn't really see it. We checked out of the grocery store really fast and drove back home. When we got there, the whole house was quiet. There was no water running, no wet floor, and all the faucets were off. It was dry. That night, my mom told my dad that she didn't think that the dreams were just dreams anymore. My dad, being the guy, didn't want to talk about ghosts. He just said to ignore it and that everything will be just fine and he'll reach out to somebody to help us out. Then, one time, my mom had a really bad dream. She dreamt of the older woman again. This time, the woman was standing at the foot of my parents' bed. She told my mom, "You already heard us. Why are you still here? If you don't leave, we're going to make sure that you see." This older lady spoke to my mom in Hmong. My mom woke up and saw that the bedroom door was slowly closing. She woke up my dad right away, and he got up and checked the hallway. Nobody was there, my siblings were asleep, I was asleep, and the front and back doors were locked. My mom didn't tell us about this dream until many years later. She said that she didn't want to scare us at the time. This also reminded me of another dream that I had. In the dream, I was standing in the basement, even though I really hated the basement and I never went down there alone. The light was on, but everything looked kind of gray. There was water on the floor, but it didn't cover my feet. It was just moving across the concrete like a thin layer. Near the laundry area, I saw an older man standing with his back to me. I didn't know who he was, but he turned around and told me to tell my mom and our family to leave, and that this was his and his wife's house. After that, I woke up and my heart was pounding. I remembered the last thing he said, so the next day I got up and I told my parents about what I had dreamt about. They played it off and said that it was probably just nothing and that I might have just ate a little bit too much before I went to bed. You know how Hmong OGs are. After that, though, my parents finally asked around. They didn't ask the landlord because they didn't feel like he was being honest. My mom asked one of the neighbors. It was an older lady who had lived on the block for many years. The neighbor didn't give a full story, but she said that the house had been through a lot of renters. She said that there had been an older couple who lived there before, not right before us, but years earlier. She said that the husband passed away first, but the wife stayed there a little while after, and then she passed away too. My mom asked if anyone had died in that house, and the neighbor got quiet and said that she did see a couple of ambulances come by a few times. That answer was enough for my mom. After that, we started to look for another place. We didn't move out right away because moving wasn't easy, but, my parents were looking around. Eventually, my parents found a new house that was located in Woodbury. So, my family and I, we packed our things and decided to leave that house. Nothing really happened during the time that we were packing up. I think that the spirits knew that we were leaving, so they just decided to leave us alone. It's been years now, and I still think about that house from time to time. I'm not sure if anyone else lives there, but I'm glad that we no longer live in that area. Hey guys, quick message before the next story. As you know, due to everyone's undying support, our channel has seen tremendous growth in the past few months in comparison to the years since this channel has been created. As our community grows closer to 10,000 subscribers, I'm hoping to work with potential sponsors to help this channel grow even faster. This will give me the chance to try out different video formats and ideas as I hope to one day talk in front of a camera instead of being a faceless voice. So, if all things go well, you might get a face reveal from me in the near future. If you're interested or know anyone interested in partnering up with this channel, reach out to my email listed in the description below. Thank you so much to everyone for supporting this channel, and here's the next story. This was a house that my family rented for a while. From the outside, the house looked normal. It wasn't huge, but it had enough space for us. There was a main floor, a basement, and a few bedrooms. One of the rooms was used as a guest bedroom because nobody wanted to sleep there full time. At first, we didn't know why. When we moved in, everything was fine. We were just happy to have a place. My parents were the type to not complain too much, and if something was broken, my dad would fix it. Now, what I'm about to tell you next are some of the experiences that my family and I had living in that house. Some of the first things that we noticed were footsteps. It didn't happen every night, but just enough that we eventually started to talk about it. It would happen late at night, usually after everyone was already in their rooms. We would hear someone walking in the hallway or near the kitchen. The steps were not loud like boots. They were soft but clear. Sometimes it sounded like someone walking from the living room to the hallway. Sometimes it sounded like someone walking upstairs when everyone else was downstairs. For the first few times, my dad thought it was just one of us getting water or using the bathroom. Once in a while, he would get up and check and notice that everybody would be in bed. My dad didn't act scared. He just said that maybe the house was settling. But the problem was that he stated the footsteps sounded too much like a person. It sounded like someone walking slowly because they didn't want us to wake up. Another thing about this house were the doors. One day, my mom was cooking and the basement door opened by itself. It didn't swing open quickly or anything like that. It just opened slowly, enough for her to notice from the kitchen. She thought that maybe it was one of us coming upstairs, but nobody came out. She walked over and looked down the stairs. Nobody was there. She closed the door and went back to cooking. A few minutes later, it opened again. This time, she called for my dad. My dad checked the door and said that maybe it was loose. He tested the doorknob and adjusted it. This time, it stayed shut, and he told us not to slam with it and mess with it. Now, that basement door often did things like that. Even though my dad fixed it, it would open by itself. There was one night, after dinner, we were all in the living room when the basement door clicked open again. All of us heard it. My dad got up right away. He seemed almost annoyed. He pushed the door closed and pulled on it. It didn't open, and he pushed on it from the side. It still didn't open. Then he looked at us and said that it was fine. Once in a while, we would come to that basement door open by itself, even when it seemed to have closed. It wouldn't be open all the way. Sometimes it would be open just a few inches. After that, doors became a normal issue in the house. The bedroom doors would open when they were closed, the closet doors would be open in the morning, and sometimes the bathroom door would shut when nobody was there. At first, we blamed the air pressure, windows, and everything else, but it happened even when the windows were closed and nothing was running. Then came the sounds of things falling. This was probably one of the more annoying ones because it would scare us for no reason. We would hear a loud thud from another room, like something heavy fell off a table or a shelf. Everyone would stop what they were doing and go check it out. Nothing would be on the floor. One time, we heard something fall in the kitchen. It sounded like a pan or maybe a cutting board dropping. My mom went in there right away because she thought that maybe something broke. Everything was in place. No pan on the floor, no cabinet that was open, nothing. Another time, I was home with my siblings and we heard something fall in the basement. It was loud enough that both of us jumped. We thought that maybe it was one of those storage bins that tipped over. We went downstairs together because neither of us wanted to go alone. Everything was normal. The bins were stacked, the boxes were in place, nothing was knocked over. That was the thing about that house. It made a lot of noise, but when you checked, there was never any proof. You would hear something, but there was nothing to see. Now, another thing about that house that I want to share is the whispering. I don't know if everyone heard them, but I know that I did. It wasn't a clear voice. It was more like when people are talking in another room and you can hear the sound of their voices but not the words. Sometimes it happened near the hallway, sometimes the basement door, and sometimes it sounded like it was coming from inside the wall. I would pause and try to listen, and then it would stop. One night I was doing my homework at the kitchen table, and I heard whispering come from the living room. The TV was off, and my parents were not home yet. My siblings were in their own rooms. I was sitting there with my pencil in my hand, and I listened. It sounded like two people talking low. I could not understand anything that they were saying. Then I finally said, "Hello?" The moment I said that, the whispering stopped immediately. I packed my homework into my bag and went into my room. That's where I finished the rest of my homework. Now, that house felt pretty haunted because we started seeing shadow apparitions. They weren't clear figures. They were more like dark shapes moving around the house. My mom told me about one time how she saw one. She was folding clothes in the living room and saw someone walk past the hallway. She thought it was me, so she called my name. I answered from the bathroom. She told me later that she got chills because whatever walked past the hallway was taller than me. My sibling also saw one too. They said that it was near the basement stairs. She said that it looked like a person standing at the bottom, but when she turned on the light, nothing was there. I also saw one as well. It was one time when I was in the kitchen. I was washing a cup, and in the dark glass of the kitchen window reflection, I saw someone standing behind me. I turned around and there was nobody there. I looked back at the window and the reflection was gone. But the worst part of that house was the guest bedroom. That room was colder than every other room in the house. I know people say that about haunted rooms all the time, but I mean it was noticeably colder. In the winter, we thought that maybe the vent was bad. My dad checked it out and said that the air was coming through just fine. In the summer, it was still cold. Not freezing, but enough that when you walked in, you noticed it. It felt like walking into a room where the window had been open, except the window was closed. At first, we used it for guests because we didn't know what else to do with it. A couple of relatives slept there and complained about bad dreams. One cousin said that she felt like someone was standing near the closet all night. Another one said that she woke up and just could not move. She didn't want to sleep there again, so she slept in my room with me. My parents thought that maybe people were just uncomfortable because it was a different house. But then, my uncle slept there one night when he came to visit. My uncle is not the type to scare easily. He hunts, he works hard, and he's not someone that talks about ghosts for fun. The next morning, he came out looking tired. My mom asked him if he slept okay, and he said no. He said that he woke up in the middle of the night and could not move. He could hear someone breathing near his face. Then, he heard a chair fall. But the problem was that there was no chair in that room. There was only a bed, a small dresser, and a lamp. No chairs, no stool, nothing that would make that sound. After he said that, my mom got quiet because other people had mentioned similar things. Not the chair sound, but the sleep paralysis. My uncle said that he did not know what was in that room, but he told my mom to not let young kids sleep in there. After that, we used the guest bedroom mostly for storage. But even when nobody slept in there, we still heard things from that room. Sometimes it sounded like someone dragging something across the floor. Sometimes it sounded like someone sitting down on the bed, causing the frame to creak. My dad was trying to be logical about it. He's a little bit older, so he would just tell us that it was probably just the house making noises on its own. But I think that even now, he just didn't want to scare us. My dad would check the windows, check the vent, check the doors and everything. My dad one time even checked the attic access, even though it really wasn't connected in a way that would make sense. He always ended up not finding anything. The weirdest sound, though, about that room was the chair falling. We heard it more than once. It would happen randomly at night. A loud wooden clatter from inside the guest bedroom, like someone tipped over a chair. Every time we opened the door, the room looked the same. Bed, dresser, lamp, storage boxes, but no chairs. I remember one night my dad got frustrated and started cursing and cussing at whatever it was. My dad was just so mad he was saying all these things to the spirit and entity. After a while, my dad calmed down and everything went back to normal. I have a few more things that I want to share with you. At this point, while we were living in this house, it was pretty clear that the house was haunted. However, it just wasn't enough to the point where we were going to do anything about it. I'll tell you this though, the creepiest thing that came from that house was when we started to hear the sound of someone crying. This happened closer to the end of us living there. By then, we were already pretty uneasy about the house. My mom wanted to move, but it wasn't easy to move, so we stayed longer than we should have. One night, I woke up because I thought I heard someone crying. At first, I thought it was my mom. The sound was soft and muffled, like someone trying to cry quietly. I sat up and listened. The house was dark except for the hallway light. The crying came again. It was coming from the guest bedroom. I didn't get up right away. I sat there, trying to convince myself that it was something outside. Maybe an animal, maybe a cat, maybe the wind. But it sounded too much like a person. It sounded like a woman crying. I decided to get up and go to my parents' room, even though I was really scared. My mom was awake too. She was sitting up, looking at the door. I whispered to her if she heard it, and she nodded. My dad woke up after us, and he heard it too. He got out of bed and turned on the hallway light. The crying stopped. He walked into the guest bedroom and opened the door. There was nothing in that room. It was empty and cold. We didn't really sleep much after that. Now, the sound of crying didn't happen all the time. It would happen once in a blue moon, once in a while. It would happen just so infrequently to the point where we would forget about it, and then when it would happen, we would remember it again. Eventually, one day, my mom decided to ask around. She talked to one of our neighbors who was older and they were retired, living a couple of houses away from us. She asked if they knew anything about the people who lived there before us. The neighbor was hesitant at first, but eventually told her that a woman and her family used to live there. They weren't sure what happened there, but one day the ambulance showed up and the family eventually moved out. At that point on, my parents knew that the house was haunted and that it might have been the spirit of someone that died there. Eventually, we were able to move out of the house. Through the help of my uncle, he was able to get us in touch with one of these Hmong homeowners who were looking for tenants to rent their place. We decided that the best next thing was to move out of that house because it was getting a little too scary. Now, before we left, my parents told all of us to not say anything about leaving. They told us to just say that we were going to the farm to go pick some vegetables and that we'll be back home. And so that's what we did. We packed up all of our things and said that we were going to go to the garden and come back home. After that, we left and never came back. Even now, I still think about that house. Sometimes I even dream about it. But whatever happened there, I'm glad that it didn't follow us to our new home. This happened when I was still in school. I don't want to say the street name because people still live in that area, and I don't want to have anybody trying to go there just to look at the house. It was one of those older neighborhoods in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The kind of place where all the houses were close together and most of them looked like they had been there for a long time. Some houses had broken steps, some had old fences, and some had windows covered in plastic during the winter. At night, you could hear cars passing by, dogs barking, people yelling outside, and sometimes the occasional police sirens. So, when we first moved there, my mom was worried about people breaking in. She was worried about us going outside too late, and she was worried about the basement windows and the garage door. The house was a small rental house on a corner. It had 2 bedrooms upstairs and 1 small bedroom downstairs. My mom had the downstairs room. I slept in the living room for the first few weeks since I didn't really have my own space yet. My younger brother Ku took one of the rooms upstairs, and my sisters Lena and Bee took the other room. My dad wasn't living with us at the time, so it was just my mom and us kids. I was the oldest, so I had to help with a lot of things. I helped carry boxes, I helped put the beds together, and I helped my mom check the locks every night. The house was not nice, but it was what we could afford. When we first walked in, nothing looked scary. It just looked old. The floor was scratching up, The kitchen cabinets were sticky, and the basement smelled damp. The upstairs hallway was narrow, and the stairs made noises when you walked on them. There was one step, I think it was the second one from the bottom, that always made a loud creak. At first, we thought it was funny. It became a pretty normal sound in the house. For the first few days, everything was pretty normal. We had boxes and junk everywhere. My mom was cleaning up the kitchen, my brother kept complaining that his room was cold, and Lena was mad because the closet in her room was too small. The only thing that I noticed was the smell. It smelled like wet clothes. Not like it was really rotten, but like something had been left in a washer-dryer for too long. We opened the windows when we could, but it was cold outside, so we couldn't leave them open for too long. My mom bought some air fresheners and put them in every room. Those didn't really help. The smell always came back, especially near the basement door and the upstairs hallway. At first, I thought that maybe it was just because the house was old. That was what we kept on telling ourselves. It was old, and that was all. The first weird thing that happened was about a week after we moved in. It was on a school night. My mom had gone to sleep early because she had work in the morning. Ku was upstairs in his room, and Lena and B were in their room. I was sleeping on the couch in the living room. I remember waking up because I heard somebody walking upstairs. I did not move right away because it sounded normal. Someone could have been going to the bathroom or getting water, and the upstairs floor was loud, so even small steps sounded bigger than they were. But the footsteps didn't go to the bathroom. They went from Ku's room to my sister's room. Then they stopped. And then they went back the other way, and then it stopped again. It sounded like somebody was walking back and forth in the hallway, so I sat up a little and listened. The whole house was quiet except for that walking sound. I thought that it was Ku, so I texted him. I wrote, "Why are you walking around?" A few seconds later, he wrote back, "I'm not." I thought he was joking, so I told him that I could hear him, and he told me that he was in bed. Right after that message came in, the footsteps stopped. Then I heard the second step from the bottom creak. That meant that somebody was on the stairs. I looked toward the staircase from the couch. It was dark, but I could see the shape of the stairs because of the streetlight coming through the front window. No one came down. I waited, and nothing. And then the step creaked again, just one time. I wanted to turn on the lamp, but I didn't want to see anything, so I just sat there with my phone in my hand and kept looking at the stairs. After a while, I told myself that it was the house, that old houses make noises, and the heater was on, and the wood maybe it expanded and shrinks when it's cold. That was what I told myself. The next morning, I told and asked my brother about it. He looked tired and said that he heard it too. I asked him why did he say that he was in bed, and he told me it was because he was in bed. My sister was sitting at the table eating cereal. She said that she thought she heard someone open their bedroom door too. My mom looked at all of us and told us to stop scaring each other. She said that the house is old and to not do anything to freak each other out. So we stopped talking about it for a while. But after that night, I couldn't sleep facing the stairs anymore. The next incident was with the basement door. The basement door was in the kitchen. It was one of those old wooden doors with a hook latch near the top. My mom liked that because my youngest sister was little and she didn't want her opening the basement door by herself. The basement was unfinished. It had a concrete floor, a washer and dryer, some old shelves, and a furnace in the back. There was also a small room under the stairs where the landlord had left some old paint cans and a broken chair. Nobody really liked going down there. Even during the day, it felt bad. I don't know how else to explain it. The basement was always colder than the rest of the house, and it had that wet smell stronger than anywhere else. But still, we used it because we had to do laundry. One afternoon, my mom told me to switch the clothes from the washer to the dryer. I went down there with my phone light because the basement light flickered sometimes. While I was putting clothes into the dryer, I heard something move behind me. It sounded like a paint can sliding on the floor. I turned around fast. Nothing was there. The paint cans were still against the wall. I thought that maybe the sound came from upstairs, so I finished the laundry and went back up. That night, while we were eating dinner, the strangest thing happened. While we were sitting in the kitchen, we heard the basement door knock. It knocked 3 times, this quiet and soft knock. You almost didn't hear it if you weren't paying any attention. Once we heard it, everybody stopped eating. My mom looked at the door and asked who it was. At first, we thought that someone was at the back door because the back door was near the basement door, so I got up and checked. Nobody was there. I turned on the porch light and the yard was empty. Everything was dark. So I came back and sat back down. Then it knocked again. Those same 3 soft knocks. This time, we all knew that it came from the basement door. I tried to act normal, so I got up and stood by the door. I thought that maybe it was the furnace making all these noise and making the door shake. Right when I thought about that, the hook latch lifted by itself. It lifted just enough to make the metal click. Then it dropped back down. Nobody said anything. I didn't open the door right away. I just stared at it. Then my mom told me to go check downstairs. I didn't want to, but since I was the oldest, I had to do it. So I grabbed a broom from the corner and opened the basement door. The air that came up was cold. I turned on the basement light and walked down slowly. My younger brother followed me, but he stayed close behind. He had his flashlight on his phone, and we checked behind the washer, behind the shelves, and under the stairs. Nothing. Not a person, no animals, and none of the windows were open. Then, my brother pointed at the floor near the furnace. There were wet footprints, small ones. They looked like a child's feet. They started near the furnace and went toward the stairs, but they stopped halfway. The weird part was that the rest of the basement floor was dry. There was no water anywhere else. I checked the pipes, I checked the washer, and I checked the drain, but nothing was leaking. I decided to touch one of the footprints with my finger, and it was cold. That's when my brother told me that we should go upstairs. I agreed, and we got back up, and my mom asked us what it was. I told her that it was nothing. I especially didn't want my youngest baby sister, Bee, to hear about the footprints. But by now, she was already looking at the basement door. Then she said, "The little boy came up." My mom told her to stop talking. Bee looked confused, like she wasn't trying to scare anyone. She just said it like it was a normal thing. After that, things started happening upstairs more. Ku's room was the worst. His room had a small closet and a little door near the floor that led to a storage space under the roof. We called it the crawl space because you couldn't stand up inside of it. You had to bend down or crawl inside. When we first moved in, we put extra blankets and boxes in there. A few weeks later, Ku started putting the boxes back into the hallway. I asked him why he was doing that, and he told me that something keeps on touching them. I laughed because I thought that he was being dramatic. Then he told me to look inside. I opened the small door and shined my phone light in. The air inside felt colder than the room. It smelled bad too, kind of like old wet carpet. There were scratches on one of the boxes. Not big scratches, just small lines like somebody dragging their fingerprints or fingernails across the tape. I told my brother that it was just probably mice, and he asked me where were the mice then if it was mice. I didn't really have a good answer for him. That night, he slept with his lamp on. The next night, he decided to sleep downstairs on the couch. My mom got mad because she said that he had his own room and he did not need to sleep in the living room. But my brother told her that the room felt wrong. My mom just told him that he was scaring himself. However, a few nights later, we all heard it. It was around midnight. I was watching something on my phone in the living room. My mom was in her room and my sisters were already asleep upstairs. Then, we heard scratching. It was coming from above us. Slow scratching, like someone dragging their nails across wood. My mom opened her bedroom door and asked what it was. I told her that I didn't know. Koo came downstairs for a few seconds later with his blanket. His face looked pale. He told us that it was coming from the crawl space. I went upstairs with him because, of course, my mom told me to go check. The hallway was cold. The bedroom door was open and the lamp was on. The little crawl space door was open too, even though Koo said that the door was already shut. I walked over and quickly opened the door and stepped back to look inside. I was expecting there to be something there, or maybe a ghost crawling in there, but it was nothing. Just boxes. However, one of the boxes was turned around. I knew that box was facing the other way because the label was now facing the wall. I shut the crawlspace door and pushed a chair in front of it. That same night, I heard the chair scrape across the floor. I did not go back upstairs to check up on my brother. In this house, the first person to really see something clearly was Lena. It happened on a morning before school. My mom was in the bathroom getting ready. I was in the living room tying my shoes because I had to leave for work. Koo was still upstairs and my youngest sister was asleep. Lena came downstairs to get some water. I heard her say, "Mom?" Then she said it again. I looked up and saw her standing near the kitchen entrance. She was holding a cup and looking toward the sink. I asked her what she was doing. She asked me where did Mom go, and I told her that she was in the bathroom. Lena looked back at the kitchen and told me that Mom was just standing right there. I got up and went into the kitchen. Nobody was there. The back door was locked and the window above the sink was closed. The kitchen light was on. I asked her what she saw. She said that there was a woman standing at the kitchen sink with her back turned. The woman had dark hair and was wearing a light sweater. Lena thought it was our mom because Mom always stood there in the morning washing cups or making tea. Lena called out to her, but the woman didn't answer. Then the woman moved to the side. Lena said that she moved behind the fridge. It was impossible because the fridge was in the corner. There was no doorway there and no space to walk behind it. I checked anyway. I pulled the fridge out a little and I looked behind it. There was just dust and a few old things on the floor, but nothing else. I don't even know why I did it because there would be no possible way for someone to hide behind the fridge. I told my sister that she was just probably half asleep. She looked at me and told me that she was wide awake. That was all she said. Later that day, when my mom came home, Lena told her about what happened too. My mom did not look surprised. She just told Lena to not talk about those things at night. That's when I noticed that my mom had been seeing things as well. She just did not want to admit it. After that, my youngest sister, B, also started seeing the woman as well. At first, it was just small things. She would stop by the stairs and look up. She would wave at the hallway when nobody was there, or she would smile into the kitchen doorway. One night, before bed, my mom told B to say goodnight to everyone. B said goodnight to me and all my siblings and my mom. Then she turned toward the stairs and said, "Good night." My mom asked B who she was talking to, and B told her that she was talking to the lady. We all looked at the stairs. Nobody was there. My mom told her to not say things like that, and B just said that she was right there. So I asked her, what did she look like? My mom told me not to say anything, but B already answered before I could stop her. She said that her hair is wet. Nobody talked after that. Another time, B was sitting at the kitchen table just coloring in her notebook. I was washing dishes and she looked past me and said, "Why is she sad?" I turned around and the kitchen was empty. I asked B who she was talking about. She pointed to the basement door. She said that the lady is looking for the boy. I felt my stomach drop because I remembered the wet footprints in the basement. I asked her what boy, and B said that it was the boy with no shoes. My mom heard that from the hallway and told me to stop asking questions. That night, my mom burned something in a small bowl near the front door. I don't know exactly what it was, but she said it was just to make the house feel better. She walked around the living room, kitchen stairs, and basement door, and she told us not to laugh and not to ask questions. The house smelled different for a few hours. Then, by the next morning, the wet basement smell came back. During that time, we still had a house phone because my mom wanted it for emergencies. It sat on a small table near the kitchen. Almost nobody called it except for relatives or people who wanted to collect bills. One evening, we were eating dinner when the phone rang. My mom answered and she said hello. Then she stopped talking. She looked confused. She said hello again, and then she hung up. I asked her who it was, and she said that it was nobody. A few minutes go by and it rang again. This time I answered it. At first I only heard static. Then I heard breathing. I said, "Hello?" And there was no answer, just static. Then the line clicked and it went dead. The phone rang 2 more times that night. We did not answer it. Each time it rang twice and it stopped. After that, my mom unplugged the phone before bed. A few nights later, though, I woke up because I heard the phone ringing again. It was around 3 in the morning. I came out of the living room and saw my mom standing in the kitchen. The phone was ringing, but the cord was unplugged from the wall. My mom was staring at it. I walked closer, and it rang 1 more time, and then it stopped. My mom picked it up slowly and put it up to her ear. I could hear the dial tone. She then put it back down and told me to go back to sleep. I didn't know what to say. I just went back on the couch, but I couldn't really sleep. After the phone calls, I started having dreams about the house. The first dream was not that scary, but it stayed with me. In the dream, I was in the living room sleeping on the couch, just like in real life. The room was dark, but I could still see the kitchen because the kitchen light was on. I heard the basement door open. Then I heard wet footsteps come up the stairs. I wanted to get up, but I could not move. A little boy came out of the kitchen and stood near the TV. He looked like he was around B's age. He had dark hair and no shoes. His clothes looked wet at the bottom. he did not say anything. He just pointed upstairs. Then I heard a woman crying from the hallway. I woke up right after that. When I opened my eyes, I was still on the couch. The living room was dark. The kitchen light was off. But just from where I was and where the couch was, I could see that the basement door was open. I stared at it for a long time, thinking that my eyes were playing tricks on me since it was still dark. I wanted to believe that I left it open earlier, but I knew that I didn't. My mom always made sure that it was latched because of B. I mustered up the courage and turned on the lights and got up quickly to close it and latch it. The next morning, I told my brother about the dream. He said that he had a dream as well. In his dream, he was in his upstairs room, and that someone or something was inside the crawl space whispering his name. He said that the voice sounded like Lena, but when he opened the little door, he saw a woman crouching inside with her hair covering her face. He said he woke up before she looked at him. Those were some of the weird things that we had, but by winter, nobody wanted to sleep upstairs anymore. On most nights, my younger brother and I slept in the living room. My sisters slept on blankets near the couch. My mom let it happen even though she used to get mad about it. I think that she was scared as well. She just didn't want to say anything about it. One night, it was very cold outside. The windows had ice around the edges, and the heater kept on turning on and off. We were all downstairs during this time. My mom was in her room, Ku was on a couch, and my sisters were already asleep on the floor. I was lying near the front window because I could not sleep. At around midnight, we heard running upstairs. Not walking. No, it was running. It sounded like a child running from one bedroom to the other, back and forth. Ku sat up right away. Lena woke up and grabbed my youngest sister. My mom opened her bedroom door and said, "What is that?" Nobody answered. The running stopped at the top of the stairs. Then the second step from the bottom creaked. Everyone froze. That did not make any sense. If someone was upstairs, we should have heard them coming down the stairs, but only the lower step creaked. Then the first step creaked. It sounded like someone was almost in the living room, but nobody was there. My mom told all of us to get our shoes on. Her voice was quiet, but it scared me because she sounded serious. We grabbed our coats and shoes fast, and my youngest sister started crying. My sister, Lena, was trying to put on her shoes while she was shaking, and Ku just kept looking back at the stairs. Then, the basement door knocked. 3 soft knocks. By now, my mom yelled at us to go, and we all went out the front door and sat in my mom's van. The house looked normal from the outside. The porch light was on, and the upstairs window had a small light on from Ku's room. The street was pretty quiet except for a few passing cars. We sat in the van for a long time with the heater on. Nobody talked much. At one point, a police car drove by slowly, and my mom told us to not wave it down. She said, "What are we going to tell them?" And I think she was right. What could we say? That something that we couldn't see was running upstairs? A door was knocking by itself? None of that sounded real. After almost an hour, we went back inside. The house was quiet, but the weird thing was that all of our extra shoes, you know how Hmong houses are, we have a bunch of shoes, all of our extra shoes were lined up at the bottom of the stairs. They were not where we left them by the door. They were all lined up neatly, all facing upstairs. My mom started to cry when she saw that. That was the first time I saw her cry because of that house. After that night, I wanted to know what happened in that house. As the eldest son, as the eldest sibling, I felt like it was my duty to protect my family, and I felt hopeless in that matter. I searched the address online, but I couldn't find much about it. I only found old rental listings and old pictures of the house. I found some police reports from the area, but nothing that clearly said that something happened inside of the house. There was, however, an older man who lived next door. Let's call him Mr. Allen. He was outside a lot, and even when it was cold, he liked to smoke on his porch and watch the street. One day, I helped him shovel some snow from his sidewalk. After we finished, I asked him if he ever knew anything about our house. He looked at the house before answering. Then he told me that a lot of people have lived there. I asked if anything bad had happened there, and he said that bad things happen in every house around our neighborhood. I thought that was all he was going to say, but then he kept on talking. He said that there used to be a woman who lived there a long time ago with her kids. He said that people on the block heard yelling sometimes, and he said that the ambulance came more than once. And he told me that one winter, though, the house sat empty for a while. I asked him about what happened to the woman, and he shook his head and said that he didn't know. Then I asked if he knew if there was a little boy. He stopped looking at the house and looked straight at me. He asked me why did I ask him that. I told him that my little sister kept on talking about a boy by the basement door. Mr. Allen got quiet. Then he said in his kind of accent, "Kids see things. Best thing is don't talk about it." After that, he went inside, and that answer kind of freaked me out. Now, by this point, you might be wondering why we didn't move out right away. And obviously, the reason why is because we didn't have the money. My mom and I were really the two people taking care of the bills, and even then we struggled a lot. I know a lot of people would say that they would leave if they ever saw something like that happen to them, but it's not easy when you have bills and school and work. My mom could just not break the lease and try to find a new place the next day. So we stayed. For a few weeks, things got quiet. Most of the paranormal activity seemed to have died down, strange enough. I started to think that maybe whatever my mom did with the smoke that last time might have worked. Then the last thing happened. It was morning when I didn't have school or work. My mom was at work, Koo was at school, and Lena and B were supposed to be at school too. I was sleeping on the couch when I heard B laughing in the kitchen. I opened my eyes because that didn't make any sense. B was not home. I sat up and listened, and I heard it again. A little laugh. Then I heard a girl say my name. It sounded like my sister Lena. I got up and checked the kitchen. Nobody was there. The basement door was closed, the back door was locked, and I even checked my mom's room. Empty. Then I heard the voice again. "Ying, come up here." It came from upstairs. I stood at the bottom of the stairs and looked up. The hallway was dark, even though it was morning. I don't know why, but the upstairs always felt darker than the rest of the house. I told myself that it was probably my imagination. Then I heard a knock come from Koo's room. One knock. I don't know what overcame me, but I decided to go upstairs, even though I really shouldn't have. Koo's room was open. The little crawl-space door was open too. The chair that I had put in front of it a long time ago was moved to the side. Inside the crawl space, I saw something purple on the floor. It was Lena's keychain. She had a purple keychain on her house key, and she kept it clipped to her backpack. I crouched down and reached inside. The air was cold and the smell was strong. It smelled like wet clothes and mixed with something sour. I reached farther until my fingers touched the keychain, and right when I grabbed it, I heard breathing behind me. I froze. It was close. It sounded like someone was standing right over my shoulder. I slowly looked down at the floor behind me, and I saw wet, bare feet. They were there, standing right behind me. Water was spreading around them. I couldn't move. In that moment, I panicked and I pushed myself backward so hard I hit my head on the doorframe. When I fell onto the floor, there was nobody there. The floor was dry. There was no feet, no water, and no person. However, the purple keychain was in my hand. I ran downstairs and called my mom on my phone. I don't remember everything that I said, but I just remember telling her that we had to leave the house. When Lena came home from school, I asked her where her key was. She said that she has lost it for a few days and was wondering where it went. Then I showed her the keychain and told her that I found it in the crawl space. I told my family about what I saw when I went upstairs. I swore I could see from the corner of my eye right behind me the woman standing there. But it was just too strange to even almost believe. Even now, I'm not too sure if what I really saw was something real. Eventually, we were able to go and stay at a distant relative's house. It was pretty hard since my dad was no longer in our life, so we didn't really have a support system. My mom had to really call around and ask if there were any relatives willing to take us in. Eventually, we were able to move out and move to a new place, and this place is pretty normal. Nothing that was as freaky as the old house that we lived in. Now that my siblings and I are much older now, we still talk about what we saw and experienced when we lived at the house. My mom now has a new boyfriend, and whenever we tell him about the house, he gets really freaked out. Whatever it was, I am glad that whatever lived at that house decided to not follow us to our new place. But if you live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and you live in one of those old neighborhoods, you might know what I'm talking about. This happened when I was still living in Fresno, California. It was on an older side of Fresno, not really in the nice new areas, but not the worst area either. It was one of those neighborhoods where every house looked different. Some had chain link fences, some had big fruit trees in the front, and others had old garages that looked like they were added later. My parents moved us there when I was in high school. I was a sophomore at the time. It was me, my mom, my dad, my older sister, and my two younger brothers. We had been living in a small apartment before that, so when my parents finally rented a house, everyone was excited. It was not a big house, but to us it felt like it was big because we finally had a yard and did not have to worry about upstairs neighbors stomping around. The house had 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. When you walked in through the front door, the living room was right there. To the left was a small hallway that led to the bedrooms and bathroom, and straight ahead from the living room was the kitchen. Past the kitchen was an old little laundry area, and from there you could open a back door that led to the yard. The garage was detached, sitting near the back of the driveway, and there was an old fig tree behind it. The first thing I remember about that house was the smell. It did not stink or anything like that. It just had this old smell, like sawwood, sawdust, and something kind of sweet. My mom said that it was probably from the fig tree and the old carpet. I didn't think anything of it because my cousins and them had an older house that kind of smelled the same too. Now up next, I'm going to explain some of the weird things that happened in that house. My mom was very picky about the kitchen. She would always clean before going to sleep. The dishes had to be washed, the counters wiped down, and the drawers closed all the way. She hated when drawers were left open because she said that it made the kitchen look messy. One morning, we woke up and 3 of the kitchen drawers were open. Not just a little bit, they were pulled out halfway. The drawer with the spoons, the drawer with the plastic bags, and the bottom drawer where my mom kept old towels. My mom blamed my brothers right away. She said, "You guys were probably looking for snacks last night." My brothers said that they did not do it. They were the type to lie about small stuff, so nobody believed in them. My dad just closed the drawers and told everyone to stop making a big deal out of it. The next morning, the same drawers were open again. This time, my mom got mad at all of us. She said that if we were hungry at night, just to say so. Don't go around sneaking around and leaving things open. My sister and I told her that we did not touch anything. My brothers said the same thing. Again, nobody really believed anybody. On the 3rd morning, my mom stayed up late on purpose. She sat in the living room folding clothes until almost 2 in the morning. She said she never heard anyone walk into the kitchen, but when she woke up the next morning, the bottom drawer was open again. That was when she stopped yelling about it. She still did not say it was anything strange, but I could tell she was thinking about it. After that, little things started happening around the kitchen. A spoon would just be on the floor. A cup would be on the counter even though everyone said that they put it away. Once, my mom even found a small pile of salt in the kitchen table. It was just sitting there in the shape of a little mound. Nobody knew where it came from. Now, another part about this house was that the hallways would have all these weird sounds. One night, I was in my room doing homework. My sister was at her friend's house and I was alone in there. My brothers were in the living room watching TV, and my mom was in the kitchen cooking. My dad was at work. I thought I heard the sound of someone walking down the hallway and stop in front of my door. I did not look up right away because I thought it was one of my brothers just trying to scare me. Then I heard the floor squeak in front of the bathroom, and then a soft knock on my bedroom door. Not a normal knock, just one tap. I said out loud, "What?" Nobody answered. I got up and opened the door, ready to yell at my brothers, but the hallway was empty. I looked toward the living room, and both of my brothers were sitting on the floor watching TV. They were not even looking at me. I asked them if they knocked on my door. They said no. I looked at my mom in the kitchen and asked her too. She said no, but she did hear the knock. She thought I had dropped something. I told myself that maybe one of the doors popped because of the air pressure. I closed my door and went back to do my homework. This didn't happen just once. It happened a few times. This other time, my sister was in the room with me. We were both getting ready to sleep. The hallway light was off and our door was completely shut. We heard what sounded like the floor squeak in front of the bathroom. Then, one tap on the door. My sister and I just ignored the sounds. I told her that it was probably just one of our brothers. She got up fast and opened the door. Nobody was there. The living room was dark and my brothers were already asleep in their room. My parents and their door was closed. My sister looked at me and said, "Don't play with me." I told her that I didn't do anything. After that, my sister never answered the door. Here's another experience with that house. This happened in the laundry area. The laundry area was small and kind of cramped. There was a washer, a dryer, a water heater, and the shelf where my mom kept the detergent. The back door was in that area too. At night, if you went into the kitchen, you could see straight into the little laundry area, and beyond that was the back door window. One night I woke up and I was thirsty. It was probably around 1 or 2 in the morning. The house was quiet, and I went into the kitchen to get some water. I did not turn on the main kitchen light because it was too bright. I just used the little light above the stove. As I was filling up my cup, I heard a soft scraping sound come from the laundry area. It sounded like someone was dragging a fingernail across the dryer. I froze for a second and listened. There it was again. I thought that maybe it was an animal, like maybe a mouse, but we haven't seen any mice in our house. I turned my head slowly and looked into the laundry area. At first, I did not see anything. Then I noticed the back door window. There was a face there. Not a full face like someone pressing against the glass. It was more like a face or a shape where a face should be. I could see dark hair hanging down on both sides, and the pale shape of a forehead or cheek. The rest was just darkness because the yard was dark. I dropped my cup in the sink and ran back into my room. My sister woke up and asked what happened. I told her that I thought I saw someone standing outside the back door. She got scared too, so we woke up my parents. They didn't want to get up because, well, my dad had just got home from work. My dad just told us that it was probably nothing and that we maybe just imagined things. He told us to just go back to bed and not to worry about it. My dad said that it was just probably my reflection in the glass. That kind of made sense to me. I mean, the stove light was on, and sometimes windows reflect things at night. That's what I just decided to believe in that day. But the next day, I went into the laundry area, and I looked at that same window during the day. The glass was too far high for my face to reflect from where I stood at the sink. I would have to be standing right in front of the back door for my face to show there. I didn't say anything to anyone because I didn't want them to think I was trying to scare people. Now, another thing about this house was that at one point, my younger brother started waking up in the middle of the night. At first, he said that he was having nightmares. Then he said that he kept hearing someone whisper from the hallway. We asked him what it said, but he said that he couldn't understand it. It was just talking low, like someone speaking with their mouth closed to the door. My mom said that maybe he was just watching too many scary movies. Now, during this time, the Hmong dub Mr. Vampire movies were very popular, and my younger brothers really liked watching those movies. They would pretend to be like the Taoist priest and start hopping like the Chinese jumping vampires. My mom told him to stop sleeping so late and to stop watching those movies. Then, one night, he came running into my parents' room, crying. That wasn't normal because my brother was the kind of kid who tried to act tough. He was in middle school by then, and he hated crying in front of people. He said that he woke up because someone sat on his bed. He thought it was our other brother, so he told him to move. But when he opened his eyes, he saw a woman sitting near his feet. She had long black hair and was facing the wall. He said that he could not see her face, and she did not move. She was just sitting there with her hands on her lap. He said that he blinked and she was gone. My mom got quiet after that. My dad said that he was still dreaming, just like every Hmong dad likes to say. But my dad checked the room anyway. He looked under the beds, in the closet, outside the window, and nothing was there. After that, my mom left a Bible under my brother's pillow. We weren't super religious or anything like that, but my mom had her own way of doing things. My dad could care less. Now here's another story that I want to share about what happened to my sister. My sister had this small silver bracelet that she wore almost every day. It wasn't expensive, but it was a gift from one of her old boyfriends. One afternoon, she said she took it off and put it on the dresser before taking a shower. When she came back, it was gone. She accused me at first. Then she accused her brothers, and everybody got mad because nobody touched it. We searched the rooms, under the beds, in the bathroom, everywhere, and she could not find it. About a few weeks later, my mom found it. It was on my sister's dresser, where she said that she placed it. Nobody knew how it disappeared. My mom held it up and asked who was playing around. Nobody answered, and I remember my sister looked like she wanted to cry because she knew none of us did it. My mom was cleaning our room because she said it was messy, and she was mad because we were fighting each other over it the other day, arguing about who took it. My dad was home and was trying to calm down the situation. He said that this house just has too many people and that everyone's moving stuff, and sometimes maybe we just forget. That was the kind of person my dad was. Even if a ghost stood in front of him, he would probably say that it was just bad lighting. Now, here's another experience that happened to me late in the summer. If you didn't already know, summers in Fresno are very hot. If you have lived there, you know that the nights do not always cool down like people think. That house had this old air conditioner that barely ever worked, so sometimes we slept with fans on and the windows cracked open. One night I woke up because the room felt cold. That made no sense because it was summer. The fan was on, but the air coming through felt like winter air. I opened my eyes and saw my sister sleeping on the other bed. The room was dark except for a little bit of streetlight coming through the blinds. Then I realized that I could not move. I had heard about sleep paralysis before, so my first thought was that it was just that. I told myself to calm down, and I tried to move, but nothing. I could not move an inch of my body. And then I heard the hallway floor squeak, the same spot by the bathroom. My door was closed, but I could hear someone standing on the other side. Then came the one tap. It wasn't loud, just a soft tap on the door. I tried to call my sister's name, but nothing came out. My chest felt heavy, and my ears started to ring. It was not like a normal ringing. It was a very loud and deep ringing in my ears. At this point, I could hear what sounded like the doorknob turning a little bit. It did not open all the way. It just moved enough for me to hear the metal click. Then, the door slowly opened. I could see slightly through my eyes the black space through the crack. I did not see a face or a hand, just darkness, but I knew that something was there. It felt like it was looking into the room even though I could not see any eyes. I closed my eyes and started to pray to God in my head. I did not know what else to do. After a few seconds, the pressure lifted. I sat up so fast that my neck hurt. The door was still closed. My sister woke up because she heard me breathing hard. I told her what happened. She said that she was asleep and didn't hear anything. Now, the weird part about this is that the door was locked. It has a lock on there, and we lock it. But I swore that I could hear it open and see it open. And a part of me believes that to this day I might have been dreaming the whole thing. Now, one more thing that I want to share about that house was something that happened near the fig tree. My dad used to keep some tools in the garage. One evening, he told my brother to help him look for a wrench. The garage was old and messy, with boxes and cans and random stuff from the old owner. It had a small side window facing the fig tree. While my dad was digging through one of the boxes, my brother heard someone whisper from outside. It wasn't any words that he could understand, just what sounded like a low voice. He thought that maybe it was one of the neighbors on the other side of the fence, so he looked through the window. Under the fig tree, he saw a woman standing with her back against him. She had this long, dark hair and was wearing what looked like a light-colored shirt or dress. He only saw her for maybe 2 seconds because my dad asked him if he had found the wrench, so he turned around to answer him, and when he looked back, she was gone. He said that it was pretty dark outside that day, so he really wasn't sure if what he saw was what he actually saw. After they were done doing the stuff that they needed to do, my brother walked outside and kind of looked at the fig tree, wondering if what he saw was really real. He said that the back gate was still locked and the dirt under the tree looked dry and untouched. There wasn't any footprints or any signs of anyone being there. Eventually, our family moved out because the landlord wanted to raise the rent, and that was the reason my parents gave us. I think that was the actual reason too. Now, this house didn't always have paranormal activity every single day. It would happen once in a while, just enough for us to forget about it. So some of these experiences are the ones that I remember from all the years that we lived there. Thank you for sharing my experience, and I'm excited to listen to it on your channel. This took place at my old house in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. It was one of those normal houses where if you drove past it, you wouldn't think anything was wrong with it at all. It looked like any other family home. The layout matters a little bit for this story because a lot of the things that happened were connected to where the rooms were. When you walked through the front door, the living room was right there. The living room was wide and open, and the front window looked out toward the street. On the right side of the living room was a short hallway that led to 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. One bedroom belonged to my parents, and the other was where my siblings and I slept. The kitchen was behind the living room, and next to the kitchen was a door that went down to the basement. The basement was unfinished on one side and kind of finished on the other. The finished side had old carpet and a couch that the landlord left behind. The unfinished side had the laundry area, some shelves, and the water heater. There was one small window down there, but it was one of those basement windows where you could barely see anything outside. Even during the day, the basement felt darker than it should have. The first strange thing that I remember had to do with a black cat. It was one night when I woke up to a cat crying outside the window. At first I thought it was just a regular cat fight. You know how cats sound when they fight or when they are in heat? It can sound like someone crying or someone screaming far away. I opened my eyes and just listened. The sound was coming from the front of the house, near the living room window. It wasn't a normal meow though. It was long and slow, almost like it was crying on purpose. This cat didn't cry every night, but it happened enough times that my siblings and I started to notice it. It always happened late at night, after everyone had gone to sleep. Sometimes it would be outside the living room window. Other times it would sound like it was outside the bedroom window, and sometimes it sounded like it was right underneath the window. Like if I had looked through the blinds, its face would be there looking into the bedroom. I really never wanted to look. My younger sister did it once. She told me that the cat was sitting on the walkway in front of the house, just staring up at the window. She said that it didn't move even when she tapped on the glass. She could see its eyes reflecting from the streetlight, but the body was so black that it looked like a hole in the yard. I thought that she was just messing with me, but honestly, I kind of believed her. One night, my dad finally got tired of it. The cat was crying so loud that even he woke up, and my dad was the type that could sleep through almost anything. He opened the front door fast, like he was trying to catch it by surprise. As soon as the door opened, the crying stopped. He stepped outside in his sandals and looked around the front yard. He didn't see anything. He didn't see the cat, he didn't see any movement, and he didn't even hear any sounds. Another thing that happened in that house was that our stuff would disappear and then come back. I know that this kind of happens in every house. People might take things and forget to put them back, things like keys and remotes, but it felt a little different in our house because it happened with things that we had just used. My mom told me how one time she was cooking in the kitchen and she put the scissors on the counter after opening one of those big bags of rice. She turned around to stir something on the stove, and when she turned back, the scissors were gone. We helped her look for them because she was getting mad, thinking that one of us kids took them. We checked the drawers, the tables, everywhere, but nothing. We couldn't find it. Later that night, after dinner, the scissors were back on the counter in the same exact spot she said that she had left them. My mom didn't say much. She just looked at them and asked who put this back. Nobody answered because honestly, nobody touched them. Now, another thing about this house was that I also saw some ghosts or spirits. Not fully, but it looked kind of like those black shadows. It was one time I was walking from the hallway to the kitchen at night. I think I was getting water in the middle of the night and the living room light was off, but the kitchen light above the stove was on, so the house wasn't completely dark. As I passed the living room, I thought I saw something white near the front window. It was fast, like a person moving from the window toward the hallway, but only for a second. I stopped and I looked. I didn't see anything there. At first, I told myself that it was probably the reflection from a car passing outside, or maybe it was even my reflection. And that made sense because the front window faced the street. Cars would often pass and their headlights would shine through the blinds. But there was something about it that felt a little too off, and it felt like it was shaped like a person. I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want to sound like I was scared. One time, my sister shared with me that she said she thought she saw someone standing by the hallway bathroom. She said that it looked like a lady in white, but she only saw the back of her. She thought it was our mom at first, but when she called out, the person walked into the hallway and disappeared. She checked my parents' room and my mom was asleep. I remember feeling goosebumps when she told me that because I didn't tell her what I saw that one time. My brother also said that he also saw that lady too. He was a little bit older than us, and you know how boys are, they tend to act like they're not scared. He was the kind of guy to laugh at those ghost stories and say that people were just imagining things. But I remember one morning, he came out of the bedroom looking kind of mad. My mom asked him what was wrong, and he said that he woke up in the middle of the night and said that he saw a woman standing near the closet. He told us that she had long black hair. He couldn't see her face because her hair was covering most of it, and it was dark. But he said that the shirt or dress she had on looked white. He thought it was my sister at first, so he told her to stop playing, and the figure didn't move. So he reached over to turn on the small lamp by the bed, and when the light came on, nothing was there. Now, another experience that I want to share was what happened during a family gathering. I still think about this one because it was one of the few times that a lot of us were there, and it wasn't just one person being sleepy or scared. A lot of the cousins came over and we were playing a bunch of games and just running around the house. We all stayed up pretty late. I remember that we had a PlayStation during that time and we were playing some video games on there. By then, most of us were already pretty tired, and my mom had gotten some blankets and pillows for us to put out into the living room where we can all sleep. That night, after playing for so long, we got tired and everybody went to bed. I remember I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't move. I was lying on my back, which I usually don't do. I tend to sleep on my side. The room was dark, but I could see the shape of our entire living room. A lot of the cousins and my siblings were sleeping in the room, and I could hear some of them breathing and snoring. At first, I thought that my blanket was too heavy. Then I realized that I couldn't move at all, and I tried to turn my head, but I couldn't. Out of nowhere, I heard the cat. It was crying outside the window again. The sound was soft at first. It was kind of quiet, and then it just got louder. It sounded like it was right under the window. I remember thinking in my head how it was that close. I tried to call my brother's name, but no sound came out. I could only breathe fast through my nose. The cat cried again, and this time I thought I heard something else in the living room. It sounded like somebody was standing up from the floor, just like a kind of small shift in the carpet. I couldn't see anything, but I thought I felt someone by the living room closet. Then I heard what sounded like a woman whisper something. I couldn't understand what she was saying. It was too low, but I definitely knew that it was a woman's voice. At this point, I was kind of freaked out and I was trying to move as best as I could. Eventually, I was able to break free and I finally moved and everything lifted off of me. I sat up fast and I looked around. Everybody was still asleep. The sound of the cat stopped crying, and after that, I really couldn't sleep. Everybody was just too loud anyways, and my older cousins were snoring away. Now, going back to the sleep paralysis, this didn't only happen to me. My sister also told me that she had sleep paralysis too. Hers was worse because she said she saw the woman at the foot of her bed. Not clearly, but enough to know that someone was there. She said that the woman was bent forward a little, like she was looking at her. She said that it was like 1 second the woman was at the foot of her bed, and the next second she was near her face. That really freaked out my sister, and she woke up crying. All of us woke up and we were wondering what's going on. My mom and dad came to the room and they tried to calm her down, and after that she told us about what had happened. My mom and dad started to take things a little bit more seriously after that. My mom put one of those red little triangles above the bedroom door. I don't know what was in it, but I know that it was something that my grandma told her to use. My mom didn't explain it to us. She only told us to not touch it. That seemed to help calm things a little bit, and we stopped having sleep paralysis. But I think that after hanging up that little red triangle, things just got a little worse. The reason why I say this is because we started to hear the sound of someone crying from the basement. Now, this is the part that I still don't really like to talk about. Even now, when I hear someone crying far away or muffled through a wall, I think about that basement. Next, I want to share some of my family's experiences with the crying. My dad told me that one time he came home late one night and he went to the kitchen to get some water. As he was drinking his water, he heard what sounded like a woman crying downstairs. At this point, he was a little freaked out because nobody should be in the basement. But, being the dad, he decided to be brave and check it out. My dad opened the basement door, and the crying stopped right away. Nobody was down there, and after that, my dad said that he made it a habit to start closing the basement door before going to bed. One time, I also heard it too. It was one of those nights where I just woke up for no reason. The house was dark, and I could hear the refrigerator humming. I thought that I should use the bathroom and maybe afterwards I could go back to sleep. As soon as I stepped into the hallway, I heard crying. It was kind of quiet, like someone trying to not cry too loud. I decided to go near the living room and listened. At first, I thought it was my mom. Maybe she was upset about something and sitting in the kitchen, but the sound was lower, like it was coming from below the floor, from the basement. I stood there for a little while, not moving. I wanted to go and wake up my parents, but I was scared that if I moved, whoever or whatever was crying would hear me. That sounded kind of dumb because the basement door was closed, but that's how scared I was. Then the crying changed. It sounded like a woman at first, but then it began to sound like the cat. Remember how earlier in the story I mentioned this black cat that would cry outside of our window every night? Well, the sound of the crying woman became this sound of the crying cat. I immediately ran back to the bedroom and got under the blanket. The next morning, I asked my parents if they heard the crying last night. My mom looked at me for a second and asked why I had heard it. I told her that I heard it in the basement, and she didn't say anything. She just told me to not go down there at night. My older brother also heard it too, but he reacted differently. He got really mad. He said that if it was a neighbor or an animal, then we need to find out. One night, when the crying started again, he grabbed a flashlight and said that he was gonna check. My dad stopped him. He told him no and said that he couldn't go down there. He said that if it was a person, then we will call somebody. But in the case that it wasn't a person and it was something else, then my brother should not go down there. That was the first time my dad really kind of talked like that. Usually he tried to explain things normally, but that night he did not. The crying didn't happen every night. Sometimes the weeks would pass without anything, and then randomly, at 1 or 2 in the morning, one of us would wake up and hear it again. Sometimes it sounded like it was coming from the laundry side, and sometimes it was like it was right under the living room. The last thing I want to say about the house is that I never saw the woman clearly. None of us did. It was always a glimpse. It was a white shape near the window or long hair near the closet, but we never really saw what the woman looked like. To this day, I don't know who she was, and I don't know if the black cat had anything to do with her. But now, after all these years, I like to believe that the black cat and the woman were the same thing. That's why that night, when I heard the woman crying and it turned into the sound of the cat crying, I figure that maybe the cat that came outside was the spirit of the woman. My family and I eventually moved out. I think that house is still out there, somewhere in Brooklyn Park. I don't know who lives there now, and I hope it's not another Hmong family, but now we don't have to worry about it. Eventually, all of us got older, and we all moved out of my parents' house, and now that we get back together, sometimes we still talk about that haunted house in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. I lived in Wisconsin for a few years because of work. It was in a city where the Hmong community wasn't very big like the Twin Cities, but big enough where everybody knows somebody who knows your relatives. I moved there with my wife and our 2 kids after I got a better job at a warehouse. We needed a bigger place and renting was getting expensive, so we started to look for a new house. The house we found looked normal. It was a small 2-story home with a detached garage, a narrow driveway, and a fenced backyard. The outside had new siding and the inside had fresh paint. The realtor kept on talking about how the seller had updated the flooring, the cabinets, and the bathroom. It looked clean. Too clean. But at the same time, I thought that it was a good thing. My wife liked the kitchen because it had a big window facing the backyard. My kids liked the upstairs bedrooms, and I liked the price. It was lower than the other houses in the area, but not so low that it seemed suspicious. When we asked why, the realtor said that the owner wanted to sell quickly because they had to move out of state. So we bought it. For the first month, or the first few months, nothing happened. We were busy unpacking, changing the locks, fixing little things, and getting used to the neighborhood. My wife's parents came to help. My dad came one weekend and walked through the house quietly. He didn't say anything at first, but before he left, he told me to keep a light on near the stairs at night. I asked why, and like typical Hmong OGs, he just told me to do it. I laughed because my dad likes to say things like that sometimes. But still, I bought a small nightlight and plugged it near the stairs. One of the weird, strange things about that house that I noticed was the smell of cigarette smoke. My wife hates smoke, and she could smell it from far away. One night, we were watching TV after the kids went to bed. Suddenly, the living room smelled like somebody had just lit a cigarette right next to us. My wife looked at me right away. "Do you smell that?" she asked. And I said yes. We checked outside, no neighbors were nearby, the windows were closed because it was cold, and the smell stayed for almost 5 minutes, then disappeared. After that, it happened every few nights. Not every single night, but once in a while. We would always notice it in the living room or near the stairs. Sometimes it smelled like cigarette smoke, sometimes it smelled like old beer, like Budweiser, and I thought that maybe it was coming through the vents. So I changed the furnace filter and checked the basement, but nothing helped. Now, one more thing about this house was that it also had phantom footsteps, I guess you could say. At first, I thought that it was just the kids. Around midnight, we would hear somebody walking upstairs from one bedroom to the hallway, then back again. Slow steps, not running and not playing, just walking. I would go upstairs and both of the kids would be asleep. Their doors would be closed and the hallway would be empty. One time, I heard the steps while I was already upstairs brushing my teeth. They came from the room at the end of the hall, the smaller bedroom that we used for storage. I opened the door, expecting maybe boxes had shifted or maybe a mouse was inside. The room was empty. The boxes were still there, but the room felt like someone had just left before I entered. At one point, my daughter started to refuse to sleep in her own room. She was 6. She said that a man stood by her closet at night. At first, I thought that she was just having bad dreams. My wife thought that maybe she saw shadows from cars passing outside. So we moved her bed away from the closet and bought a brighter nightlight and told her to come get us if she got scared. Then, one morning, she told us about the man that she saw. She said that he had tape over his mouth. I asked her what she meant, and she said that the man by the closet had something dark over his mouth and he always looked mad. I told her that it was just probably a dream, but inside, I felt a little scared. My wife wanted to know the history of the house. I told her not to search because I didn't want her to scare ourselves. That was stupid. When you live in a house, you should know what happened there. But part of me already suspected something, and I didn't want any confirmation. Now, the scariest thing that happened to me was in the basement. Our laundry was down there. The basement was partly finished, with one room that had old wood paneling and another area where the washer and dryer sat. The fresh paint upstairs did not match the basement. Down there, you could see the house was older. The cement floor had cracks, the wood paneling had stains, and there was a small, square patch on one wall where the color didn't match. One night, I went down to switch the laundry. It was around 11:30 or close to midnight. My wife was upstairs and the kids were asleep. As I was moving clothes into the dryer, I heard a man cough behind me. It was a kind of deep cough. I turned around so fast I dropped my clothes. No one was there. I stood still listening, but it was quiet. I decided to run upstairs with the clothes. I picked it all up and told my wife. She didn't laugh. She said that earlier, that same day, while I was at work, she heard something fall in the basement. When she checked, nothing had fallen, but she saw the basement door slowly closing by itself from halfway open. That freaked me out, and I thought that maybe there was an intruder in the house. So I grabbed my gun and a flashlight and went down into the basement to clear it out. But there was nothing down there. To be honest, I was pretty scared. I told myself that if it was a ghost, then these bullets won't do anything to it. But luckily, there was nothing down there. But the whole time, it felt like someone was watching me. One Saturday, my wife's cousin came over with her husband. We hadn't told them that much. We didn't want people thinking that we were crazy and that our house was haunted. But when the cousin walked in, she looked uncomfortable right away. She asked if someone had died in the house. I thought it was kind of weird because that was literally the first thing that she said. My wife and I looked at each other. The cousin said that she wasn't trying to scare us, but she just felt like there was a man in the living room, sitting where the old couch used to be. Not our couch. She said the old couch, even though we had never mentioned that there had been old furniture in the listing photos. That night, I finally searched the address. I found a local news article from years earlier. There had been a murder in the house. A man was killed during an argument. The details weren't all clear, and I'm not going to repeat them because I didn't want to disrespect the dead or the family. But one detail made my hands go cold. The article said that the victim was found in the basement. After that, everything made sense and also didn't make any sense at all. The fresh paint, the low price, the patched wall, all those weird experiences. We considered moving out right away, but that's easier said than done. We had just bought the house, we had bills, we had kids in the school, and, we didn't have anybody to live with. My parents and my in-laws lived farther away. And to be honest, I didn't really believe in all of this paranormal stuff, even though I had experienced it firsthand. I was kind of dumb looking back at it now. I told myself that we were living in the 21st century, the age of technology, and that these supernatural things were just our own imaginations. So we continued to stay in the house. There was one winter where there was fresh snow outside. In the middle of the night, the garage light turned on. The light was motion activated, so I woke up thinking that maybe an animal had passed by. I looked out the bedroom window and saw that the garage side door was open. I grabbed my phone and my gun and went downstairs. I told my wife that somebody might be in the garage. I checked outside and noticed that there were footprints in the snow. They came from the garage door to the back fence, but didn't come from anywhere else. There were no prints entering the yard, just prints leaving the garage and stopping at the fence. The garage was empty, there was nothing that was stolen, and the side door lock was still working. That was one of the last moments that I remembered before we finally left that house. We found a new house through Facebook Marketplace that was closer to my work. Our new house doesn't have anything weird that happens with it. It's a completely normal house, and it seems like whatever it was at the old house didn't follow us to our new place. This story probably happened around the late 2000s. The house itself had already been around for a long time before that. It was in one of those older neighborhoods in St. Paul, Minnesota. The houses were close together, the yards were small, and the basements were unfinished. The house belonged to my aunt and uncle at the time. It wasn't big from the outside, but once you went inside, it felt longer than it looked. The front door opened into a small living room with one big window facing the street. On the left was a hallway with 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. On the right was a dining area and then the kitchen, and the kitchen had a back door that went out to the porch and backyard. The basement stairs were between the kitchen and dining area. They were steep and narrow, and the lights downstairs were weak. Even if you turned it on, the basement still looked dark. Downstairs, they had a laundry, storage shelves, and one room that my uncle used for tools and old furniture. Nobody liked going downstairs alone. Upstairs was not really a full upstairs. It was more like an attic bedroom. There was a small staircase near the hallway, and when you climbed up, there was one open room with low ceilings and slanted walls. During family gatherings, the older cousins liked to go up there to hang out away from the adults. That house was where our family gathered a lot. Birthdays, parties, get-togethers, cookouts. My aunt cooked a lot of food, and everyone else would also bring their own food. The adults would sit in the kitchen and dining room and living room talking, and us kids would be running around the whole entire house. The first strange thing that I remembered happened during one of those gatherings. It was around winter time, so it got dark pretty early. I remember there being snow outside because our shoes were wet by the front door, and my aunt kept yelling at us to not step on the carpet with our socks. There were a lot of us cousins there that night. I don't remember the exact number, but I want to say maybe 9 or 10 kids total. After eating, we got bored and started playing hide and seek in the dark. One of my cousins thought of the idea of us playing hide and seek downstairs in the basement since nobody was using it. Since there were a lot of us, we weren't really scared, so we all went downstairs into the basement to play hide and seek in the dark. And, well, if you already didn't know, that was a pretty bad idea. One of my older cousins was counting. The rest of us ran around trying to hide behind old furniture, under shelves, and all that stuff. It wasn't a serious game. We were just laughing and being loud. Eventually, everybody got caught, and after most of us got caught, one of my cousins said, "Wait, how many people are playing?" We all started to count each other. There was me, my brother, two of my girl cousins, and a bunch of other kids. I remember one of the older cousins counting with his finger and saying that there's 10 of us. Then one of my girl cousins said, "No, there's supposed to be 9. We all started arguing because kids always argue over simple things. One cousin said that someone was hiding, another person said that somebody maybe went upstairs. Then one of my younger cousins pointed near the wall in the basement and said, "No, he's right there." I looked where she pointed, and there was a little boy standing next to the wall. At first, I didn't think anything of it. He was sitting in that dark spot where the light didn't really reach that well. I couldn't really see his face clearly. I just thought that he was one of the younger cousins from another family. When you have a big family gathering, sometimes you don't even know every kid who shows up. One of my cousins asked him if he was playing, but the boy didn't answer. We were all just staring at him, but I remembered that he looked kind of small, maybe kindergarten age or first grade. He had short hair and a dark shirt. His skin looked pale, but then again the room was dark, so I didn't think too much about it. One of my older cousins said, "Who is that?" That's when it got quiet. Nobody answered. One of the younger kids got scared and ran upstairs. Once they did that, the rest of us started following them upstairs, tripping over each other. When we got to the top of the stairs, the adults were yelling at us, wondering what the heck we were doing. They thought that we were fighting. My aunt asked us what happened, and we tried to explain that there was an extra kid playing with us. She looked at all of us and said that maybe we counted wrong. My uncle laughed and said that we were probably just scared and scared ourselves while we were playing in the dark. After that, we counted ourselves, and it turned out there were 9 of us. None of us really wanted to go back downstairs to see who that kid was. That was one of the weird things that happened in that house. It was strange because we were kids and we eventually just moved on from it. We didn't really have any proof that there was another kid downstairs. Keep in mind, we didn't have any iPads or phones during that time, and honestly, we could have just counted wrong. But that wasn't the only thing that happened in that house. One time, I slept over at my cousin's house there with my brother. My aunt had asked my mom if we wanted to stay because our cousins were there and we had no school the next day. So we all slept in the living room with blankets with the other kids. The adults slept in the room. I remember waking up in the middle of the night because I felt pressure on my chest. I could see the ceiling above me and I could hear the heater blowing. I tried to move, but I couldn't. At first, I thought my blanket was too heavy, or maybe my brother had rolled onto me. But when I opened my eyes, I could see that nobody was touching me. My body just wouldn't move, and that's when I realized that I had sleep paralysis. I had heard older people talking about getting slept on before, but at that age I didn't understand it that much. I only knew that when it happened, you were supposed to try to move your fingers or toes and pray in your head. So I tried to move my fingers, but nothing happened. I felt this pressure like somebody was sitting on top of me. I wanted to turn my head, but I couldn't. I could only move my eyes. I looked toward the hallway, and then I saw a shadow standing near the bathroom door. It wasn't fully shaped like a person, but it was tall enough that I knew it wasn't one of the kids. I kept telling myself that it was just probably a coat hanging on a door or something in the hallway. But the longer that I looked at it, the more it felt like it was looking back at me. Eventually, the pressure lifted off my chest, and I sat up fast. I woke up my brother and told him to move closer to me. He got mad and told me to go back to sleep. I didn't sleep much after that. The next morning, I didn't tell anybody, and I honestly just forgot about it because we just kept playing in the house. But after that, whenever we went to my aunt and uncle's house, I never liked being alone in the living room. Another thing that happens in that house is that objects would disappear. This was something that was common, and even my cousins told me about it. They told me that they had this old Nintendo game. I can't remember if it was a Game Boy or something similar, but it was one of the small ones that all of us cousins always fought over. He kept it in a drawer in the living room stand, and one day he just could not find it. He accused all of us of taking it, and we all denied it. The adults got annoyed because he kept crying over it. My aunt searched the whole living room, the drawer, the couch, and even the kitchen, but she couldn't find it. She told them that maybe he lost it somewhere. A few days later, my cousin found it sitting in the middle of the basement stairs. Not at the top, not at the bottom, but right in the middle of the stairs. Nobody knew how it got there. My cousin said that he had not gone into the basement, but we weren't really sure if we believed it or not. We just kind of laughed it off. My cousin would also tell me that these things happened more than once with different things. Keys, the TV remote, one of my aunt's jewelries, and all their items and stuff would just kind of go missing and then disappear and show up somewhere weird. The missing items would eventually show up in places that people already checked, or sometimes in very weird places, like inside a shoe. My aunt and uncle tried to blame the kids, which made sense, but some places just did not make sense where they would end up. Now, years later, when we got older, I asked my cousin if he remembered the extra kid from hide and seek. He said that he did, but he told me he never liked talking about it because he always thought that he was the only one who saw that kid really clearly. I asked him what he meant by that, and he said that when they were playing hide and seek, he looked straight at him, and he noticed that the boy's face was too smooth, like there were features, but they weren't all the way there. He said that he remembered the boy looking sad, not angry or anything else, just sad. I don't know what that means, but my uncle and aunt don't live in that house anymore. They moved out years ago for normal reasons, not because of ghosts or anything like that. But I still think that that house was haunted, and maybe that was a small reason that led them to moving out. The weird thing was that nothing in that house ever felt evil to me. It felt more like there were presences there, like ghosts and spirits, but they were just trying to mind their own business just as much as we were. That was my cousin's haunted house, and if there's any more stories that I remember, I'll remember to share it with you.